UGA, game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunker down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby Smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut
tape.
up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up. The tape.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a fabulous Thursday evening. Hey, last show, best show. Let's get after it. We got a loaded one for you. Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema had time the last couple of days for my opening topic today. Brett Bielema has made his opinions known. Arch Manning already saying the right things as the impending star of maybe college football. The coolest college football team of 2024. Apparently, we're going to talk about that tonight. And we got to-do list making a return tonight with Alabama being on tonight's show notes for the to-do list. Going to tell you what they need to clean up and get addressed going into the next season, but I'm going to start with this. Not that anyone really believes the NCAA has any power left running the sport of college football, but if you haven't noticed, guys, they might be in their final fight, if you will. Yeah, we have Rev Share coming on our way, the settlement of House versus NCAA, all that good stuff. We believe that federal government aid will eventually be out here with regards to regulating this sport with the moving around of the money and the paying of players. We do believe there is some help coming on that forefront. But in terms of the day-to-day governance, okay, of this sport and the general adherence of the rules that the NCAA is tasked with keeping intact, I think we're about to find out just how much power they actually hold moving forward in this sport. Because if you haven't been paying attention, it looks to me, by all accounts, that Michigan is going to make an absolute mess out of the sign stealing investigation and pending sanctions that are ultimately coming from the NCAA. I'm going to read a lot over the next 2 or 3 minutes, and I hope you hold with me. I'm going to summarize most of it, okay? I'm going to read from Yahoo's reporting today on this topic. Quote, in the 137-page document, Michigan makes it clear that they will not enter a negotiated resolution with the NCAA over the alleged wrongdoing, vigorously defending its former head coach, current head coach, several staff members, and here's the kicker, even Stallions. That's right. We have a team that we all know and believe broke the rules. You can debate the severity of the rules. I think that's the overarching talking point that everyone gets bogged down with, whether or not it actually impacted the outcome. I'm not here to debate that today. All I'm here to debate is that we all know they knowingly broke a rule about advanced scouting and going to some of these locations and, of course, filming some of these things and all that. We all know they clearly broke a rule, have been caught, and in the midst of their, sentencing, if you will, in the midst of their punishment, they're throwing haymakers back towards the NCAA. Not to mention, most of this 137-page document that they've sent to the NCAA basically saying, hey, You can bring these sanctions all you want. We're going to fight you. Most of this fight comes with regards to the actual tipster that gave the NCAA this information that Michigan was cheating. I'm about to read a bunch to you that basically says, quote, Michigan's pissed because they want the snitch that ratted on them inside the building to be revealed. All right, here's how they said it verbatim in their document. According to the document, the tipster derived from Michigan's own campus. The unnamed source, which NCAA has not disclosed, appears to have worked at the school. Michigan believes the confidential leaker was used by the NCAA to produce at least some of the charges in the notice of allegations, something in which it expresses, quote, concern. While the school respects the secrecy of confidential sources, it says the document, the NCAA can present evidence and infractions based only on, quote, information that can be attributed to individuals who are willing to be identified. Basically, Michigan's 137-page document to the NCAA says, middle finger up, we're going to fight you to the death of this. And oh, by the way, if your snitch of a source don't want to come out here and tell us who he is, you ain't allowed to use any of that up against us. Oh, not to mention, here's the real kicker of it all. There's a 300 group of assembly of former Michigan football players that have banded together and have now currently actively sued the NCAA for retributions and back pay on NIL. And do you know what the sweet cherry on top is, boys? Do you know who the keynote speaker in that lawsuit against the NCAA suing them for NIL money is? Do you know who it might be?
I would guess it would be J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, that's a good guess. No, it's actually Denard Robinson. Everybody knows Denard Robinson as Mr. Shoelace guy. Damn near won a Heisman, not tying his cleats. Now, why would Denard Robinson be tied to the Michigan program other than the fact that he played and they made a lot of money on him on the front of the NCAA program?
Didn't he coach there?
He did. That's right. He coached there. And guess who else is also tied up in the sign stealing investigation? Denard Robinson. He's a main known guy in the investigation. He's also the main known guy turning around suing him. They are making a mockery out of the people who are actually tasked with governing this sport. And look, I am all here for if you are out here saying the NCAA ain't shit. I agree. I played underneath them. I agree. They are not shit. But here's what I'm also not here for. I'm not out here for listening to coaches bitching about tampering, bitching about all these wrong rules and all these problems with our sport, praying that somebody were to fix it. Meanwhile, somebody tries to fix the actual cheating that may or may not impacted the outcomes of the literal football games. And when we go to try to hold those people's feet to the fire, they get to kick us in our damn mouth and push us out of court because we don't have any actual weight. Y'all see what I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. Y'all see what I'm trying to understand? I'm trying to understand where everybody's at, where NCAA ain't shit. NCAA ain't shit. Please, somebody save us. Who's going to save us? He's going to walk in, try to save the shit, and y'all going to be like, hey, bro, you ain't shit. Get up out of here. I don't understand the thought process of all this.
I mean, the thought process of it is that you had 20 to 30 years of the NCAA being a really, really bad organization and making a bed like this, and it's now at a point where they have to lie. And I do agree that you need some form of government that can do it, but the problem is the NCAA has tainted their image so much to the point that no one respects them, to the point that you have schools that like Michigan, like Tennessee, that can do this and say you have no power strong-arming them. So we need a governing body, and it's kind of the NCAA's fault there isn't one now. So I understand being mad at the NCAA, and I understand calling for a governing body at the same time.
And look, sometimes the audience needs to know this because it's going to sound like I'm attacking your point, therefore attacking you. You know what I'm about to talk about. The NCAA just answers to the big presidents and owners of these actual schools. So until those power brokers actually release power, the NCAA is just a whipping boy publicly for everybody. No different than an actual commissioner is in the NFL. They're just answering. Roger Goodell just answers to the 35 or 32 owners in the NFL. The NCAA commissioner just answers to the biggest presidents of the top 30 organizations that actually control college football. These back channel decision makers, right? These unknown decision makers in college football that have been steering this sport for the last 30 years. Those are the people who need to be held accountable. We'll never get to those. They ain't never getting to them. All right. But we can sit here and blame Charlie Baker or whoever we want, Mark Emmert, whoever we want up there at the NCAA, office and organization building. But they're just answering to the biggest presidents of these universities, man. That's it.
Do you think, too, like, we're just going to get to a point where nobody really cares what happens in the end result of this? Like, when the allegations first came out, obviously, people were tore up about this. Michigan fans wanted to defend their title. They wanted to say they did it cleanly. Jim Harbaugh was doing the thing. Michigan was doing their own thing. And then everybody else in college football was saying, these guys are frauds. These guys are cheaters. There's explicit evidence of this happening on the football field. We got names tied to this. But I think, too, like, we're going to get so detached from the recency of this that if whatever the end result is, even if it is like, yes, they were actually cheating, like, I feel like I'm not even going to care anymore.
To me, I'm beyond the discussion point of arguing with people that want to tell me it didn't impact the outcome of knowing that the team is about to run the football. You tell me that doesn't impact the game of football. We're never going to agree on that point. Or we're never even going to agree to disagree on that point. I've moved on to the point of now of y'all are out here clamoring for someone to enforce some type of rule book, and you haven't even decided on the rule book, but we have all decided that someone or something needs to fix college football. Raise your hand if you've heard that one. All right, everybody's heard it. Okay, we all have. But yet when someone actually tries to enforce a rule that currently is in place, like I said, they're getting drugged left and right. The same thing happened with Tennessee. Tennessee was like, wait a minute, y'all going to actually hold us accountable to these rules that we're shifting the whole entire time? Screw that. We're taking you to court. We're going to wax your ass because you mean nothing. So
we just need a commissioner.
Well, yeah, we need a commissioner that people will actually listen to. And people will say, oh, wait, I'm in trouble. I need to sit in timeout. Okay, I'll go stand in the corner. Not, okay, I'll go stand in the corner. I'm about to piss all over the room. That's what Michigan's doing. Yeah, I'll go sit in the corner taking dumps all over the living room that you got to go clean up. In public embarrassment, coach, I'm out here wiping my ass in the living room floor.
But I mean, again, to that point, if we have a commissioner, is he not just the figurehead at that point that answers again to the owners, and it's going in this cycle again of? So I mean,
yes. That's why the idea is funny.
It's why it's hilarious to me, and it's why everyone's like, "Oh, we need one." Why? So he can answer again to a bunch of unnamed people that we don't actually assort power to or associate power to, but we all who actually know about college sports understand the reason being. It's been like this since 1998, since BCS came around, and it's boring, and we should move the topic anyways, but nonetheless, until there's actually some governing body that people respect, not just someone answering for 35 of the powerful university presidents, it doesn't really matter. All right, welcome in. We got a much more positive show moving forward, I promise you. Could bonuses be a feature that help rev share and player output? Something Kirby's going to bring to us tonight. Brett Bielema with an absolute dunk on my man Jim Harbaugh. So maybe we aren't moving on Michigan too quickly. We're going to stay there. ESPN had a top 100 best college football games of 2024. I'm assuming that's the 2024?
Yep.
You said it was loaded with D2 football?
There's a lot of D2
Shorter
football.
making an appearance?
I don't think so.
Doubt it.
I doubt they're playing in close games this year.
Texas landed a defensive tackle transfer. We got some Arch Manning news on the notes today. Action Network made a coolest college football team of 2024. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we have our to-do list at the end of the night. Speaking of to-do list, boys, number one thing on my big board this offseason, right there, fine bold print. Bold print, not fine bold print. Get my finances right and eliminate the waste in my budget. Does anybody know where I might be able to go to potentially eliminate some of the waste in my budget? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll take the nice, handsome man in the front row.
Oh, thank you,
with
man.
the mustache.
I think I've got an idea. How about Rocket Money? It's a personal finance app that helps you find or cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using the app's premium features. Yeah, that's $740 a year in your pocket if you use the premium features.
Dude.
Exactly. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. rocketmoney.com/gameon. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. There you go. Did that hit you?
It's got to be a worse toss.
Did that hit you in the head?
No, it hit the roof.
Redemption a little bit.
Got reserves.
That wouldn't actually be a roof. That would be the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we are indeed in mom's basement.
Mm-hmm. We are in the basement.
Shout out. Guys, did y'all see Brett Bielema dunk on Jim Harbaugh on social media?
That was the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning.
Oh, it was delightful. Bielema been on a little run lately of embarrassing some other fellow coaches. Got Shane Beamer, pretty notably.
Got Shane Beamer to crash out.
Also got Shane Beamer in one of those crash outs when you're actually double wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know? You were the one being an ass. I was letting you know you were being an ass, and you doubled down on being an ass, thinking I'm being an ass. Not ideal for Shane Beamer there.
No.
Brett Bielema got on Jim Harbaugh's ass today. Justin Spiro tweeted out something, an old video of Jim Harbaugh in a San Francisco 49ers hat. So this must have been 2012 range or maybe even prior, that says, if you cheat to win, then you've already lost. It was a quote from Jim Harbaugh. Brett Bielema quote tweeted that yesterday and said, really? Why did you leave? Was looking forward to playing, but understand why you ran to the hashtag NFL. See you in the future. Can't wait.
I wonder if this was around the time where the Deflategate was going on, and he was asked about that.
That's probably what it was.
Probably.
I bet you that's what this was in relation to.
That's hot.
Honestly, when I first saw the Bielema tweet, I thought someone had made a burner. I thought there was no way an actual college football head coach.
Bielema's had time lately. He clapped at Pate the other day too.
Yeah, he did. Just love. This is what makes the offseason fun, is getting moments like this of just, whoa, what do we got here? We got some beef between. Well, I guess it's kind of one-sided beef because
it is the rare time of the year where football coaches are constantly by their phone. They got time right now, Bubba. They're not used to spending 30 days around their family. All right, so they probably taking extended dump times. You know what I mean? Hey, honey, I know it's bedtime. I gotta go take a poo. Sitting there scrolling. Y'all don't have kids yet. Trust me, you'll get there.
Good doom.
You work
scroll.
a good 15-hour day. You come home. Work day starts over. You know what I mean? One of them things. So yeah, extended poos really start to happen. So your scroll time starts to happen. What are we talking about? Bielema taking a poo on Jim Harbaugh. Then he followed it up with retweeting the On3 report from Sharon Moore. His quote. Have you read this quote from Sharon Moore? He was asked about the sign stealing allegations, specifically why he deleted text messages between he and Connor Stallions. Now, let's play a little role play here, okay? One of you guys, Sharon Moore, NCAA investigator. Who wants to be Sharon?
I'll be Sharon.
All right, here we go. Sharon, why on earth would you delete text messages between you and Connor Stallions the day it was announced that there was an investigation on the school about a sign stealer?
Maybe some things that I wouldn't want someone to see.
Don't know if we tell an investigator that. Let's try this again. Sharon Moore, why would you delete text messages between you and Connor Stallions the day it was announced that an investigation was coming down? Because of an action that disgraceful, I would not want to associate with that person anymore. Man, you and Sharon Moore connected. By the way, anytime you get asked why you deleted text messages on the day a national news story like this broke, the answer is no comment, because you about to sound guilty as shit, even when you answer it that well. All right, even when you answer it that well, you're about to sound guilty, because that's what Sharon Moore did today, or whenever he was asked this question. Quote, I'm just extremely angry of the type of person that would do this to this program and these kids. Absolute disgust. Was so disgusted at these actions by Connor Stallions, I had to delete any known text message between he and I because I was just so disgusted. Couldn't even be around it.
Doesn't this, to me, this comes across as Sharon Moore saying that it happened. Like they are guilty. That's how this strikes me. Of, oh, you're going to do that to this program? You just tainted our national title? I don't want to associate with you. That to me sounds like Sharon Moore saying we are guilty. He did steal signs. We did do some dirty work. I don't want to be associated with it, though.
Also, what part of the behavior towards Connor Stallions, other than, suspending him, has Michigan shown where they're absolutely disgusted by this behavior? That all of his players are just disgusted by this. All of his players are laughing with him. They're all laughing. Everyone's laughing. Except for Ohio State fans.
The only correct answer you have there, Sharon Moore, is, listen, I have a busy schedule. I do a lot. I don't remember doing that. I'm not saying I didn't do that. If the investigation says I did that, maybe, but I don't remember.
I got you right here. Hey, my phone's got an automatic delete clause after 2 weeks. Text messages just get wiped.
Well, I mean, that could probably be proven false.
Could it? What if you just wipe everything?
Maybe. I mean,
everything?
Playing
if
dumb
we ever get into college
better.
football coaching, we need to figure out the actual what they can find on our phones before we start getting into our debaucherous behavior.
Well, we're not going to cheat.
Agreed? Who ain't going to cheat?
We're not going to do debauchery, dude.
If I was a college football coach,
no.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't getting up. You ain't climbing, dog. Not in that sport. They're all dogs. from what I've known. I love them all. They're all friends of mine, every single one. But they're all dogs. All of them. Some good dogs, but some I have to not let inside the house.
I don't even know what you're referencing anymore.
Rev share? You got a take on this?
So I was thinking about this earlier this week and kind of figured it'd be a good talking point for us. NFL contracts are structured in a way that when a player signs a deal, he gets a contract that's worth X number of dollars. That's the final value of his contract. However, there's stipends in that, and there's bonuses in that, and there's incentives in that. For example, Mike Evans got, I think it was a $2 million bonus this year to have another 1,000-yard season.
It's like 10 in a row for him.
Yeah. It's
fraudulent. Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
Falcons fan, don't worry about it.
Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
The fact that he's had that many consecutive years is fraudulent?
Yeah. Bogus.
We can talk about that later. Anywho, my thought is that obviously when you have an incentive like that, it's going to really make these players try that much harder to reach certain goals.
How do you fraudulently put up 1,000 yards?
Because every single year it's the same crap where Mike Evans...
Up 1,000 yards?
No, Mike Evans has 940 yards going into the final game, and he'll have 50 going into the last play.
It's so bullshit that Mike
listen.
Evans averages 70 yards a game for 60 games and then does it the 17th game.
Did you see how he got it this year?
Well, I don't really care.
You should care.
$2 million.
They had the game in hand. This is a point in time in the football game where everybody's running the ball, just like killing clock, need the football. They throw the ball to make sure that he gets 1,000 yards. Fraudulent.
Jonathan, I hate to tell you this, but if a television executive came into this office tonight and said, hey, we have $2 million for Jay Will if he manages to close the last 15 minutes of the show all by himself, you tell me you ain't trying to ISO the whole damn show?
Well, I don't feel like these are similar things.
How not? It's incentive based. I love this take by you, by the way, because this is essentially what we're talking about. Where instead of chasing a $2 million bonus, it's going to be, hey, to get my $1 million of NIL, I actually have to play all 15 games. So I can't opt out.
The original point I had of this is if NIL contracts, because I mean, rev share is going to come at some point where there's going to be written, signed, legal documents instead of just these handshakes.
We hope.
You would hope so. That's my goal with all of this. Instead of these handshake deals where in these legal documents, you can tell a player, hey, your NIL, this deal that you have with us is worth $1.2 million, but $600,000 of that is within incentives for you to say a wide receiver, you have to get a 750-yard season and X number of touchdowns. Now you have incentives for these players to develop, to actually try and practice, to try in games. Because the main complaint that we hear from coaches in the NFL, coaches in college, coaches in high school is these guys have already made their money. They have no incentive to try hard. There's no development here. Whereas if you put the development in their money and they have to actually try to get that, would that not be a way to mitigate people players not necessarily trying as hard?
I don't know to the length at which all schools do this, but I do know at most schools there are fine systems. Now they're not bonus structures, but there are fining systems, meaning, Kirby, if I promised you that I was going to pay you $1,000 a month, if you showed up late to work one time, that's minus $500 or minus $20.
Right.
You do it again, it's minus $40. You do it again, it's minus $80. There are incentives or negative incentives like this, or fines rather, in this where schools can recuperate their money. Also, by the way, if I paid you $250,000 this year to be a starter, and by the end of the year you were a 3, like you're not making $250,000 next year.
No.
So there are ways to get money back or to knock money down. I haven't heard of bonus structures where, hey, we're going to pay you $300,000. You go for 800 yards as a receiver. We're paying you $400,000, $500,000. You make 1,000 yards, we'll give you $1 million.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I haven't heard of anything like that. What I have heard of, and the reason being, Kirby, is because when kids do that, they come back into the office saying, I need more because I'm getting offered more. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a much more vast free agency market for kids who actually perform. Whereas in the NFL, if you outperform your contract in year 2 of a 4-year contract, you're just stuck there for 2 years, man.
Right.
There's nothing like that in college.
No, and that's kind of my idea of this is like, say you're a 5-star recruit at the quarterback position. You are the guy coming in. part of your incentive in NIL would be win the starting job. Because you can pay these guys $1 million a year for them to not win the starting job for you.
Ohio State fans have been watching this, and I'm pretty sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is why Quinn Ewers transferred out of Ohio State, because a lot of his NIL deals were tied, his incentives were tied to playing time.
Makes sense.
So he got out of there.
I think, too, what this structure would do is, like, obviously, it's like you're setting season goals for these players and you're incentivizing them to perform and all this other stuff. And I think this would also kind of set a structure up for, hey, are you able to go into this offseason and say, hey, coach, I need a raise? Because these were the requirements that we set before you. So, like, if we tell you, if you go for 850 and 6 touchdowns as a wide receiver and you go for 970 and 8 touchdowns, okay, you get your bonus. Maybe now we can start have a renegotiating of your contract because you're outperforming what we have set you at. To where instead of like, oh, well.
So I think that discussion you're talking about, I think that already happened. When guys outplay their current value, they get to come in and renegotiate.
But I think there's also discussions of I need a raise just because I think I need a raise.
Yeah.
Those types of things where I'm saying like this at least sets some sort of structure around it, it feels like.
Well, I honestly think with rev share and the rev sharing model, eventually there's going to be a structure for set salaries. Meaning I might be a 5-star, you're a 4-star, and you're a 3-star. We all signed at Georgia for $200,000 as a base salary, but I'm a 5-star, so if Coke wants to come pay me, if Powerade wants to come pay me, they can. You know what I mean? Where it's actual real money, not pay for play. Where I'm a 5-star, the collective gives me $450,000. They give you $200,000 and you're free riding. You know what I mean? Hell, nowadays, the 3-star over here, he's probably a walk-on and the boosters are just paying his tuition. Now, because there's no regulation on it, but there's set to be regulation, which comes to our next, where I really want to transition this conversation, which is with rev share, is there going to be an actual relief on boosters, right? We all believe, or at least they're telling us, that there's going to be a rev share model come down, right? And that the settlement between House versus NCAA means $20 million is going to be allocated to paying players for their likeness and for their performance, essentially, in college athletics. Now, what we don't know is how that money is going to be dispersed annually. We don't know if they're going to give $18 million of it to the football program and $2 million to everybody else. We don't know if, under the last presidential administration, it had to be 50-50 and pass through Title IX. I don't believe that bill is going to hold. We don't know how it's going to be dispersed, all right? What we also don't know is if the rev share pot, that $20 million, if that's going to completely replace collectives, or if it's just going to be a bonus on top of collectives. And honestly, the guys that I talk to around college football, that's what they fear most. Because what most football programs have been dealing with over the last, I'd say 18 months, is donor fatigue. The first 18 months of NIL, there were rich boosters out here that were like, wait a minute, you telling me I can legally pay Jimmy now and I can get to come to practice and watch Jimmy play? Oh my God, yes, take it. Here's $200,000 a year. They didn't care up front. But now every 2 weeks they're getting called for a check, and there is a lot of donor fatigue, all right, at a lot of these football programs. So I do think there are some schools that are like, whoo, revenue sharing is coming. Hopefully I get to stop asking my donors for money. However, if there's no regulation on the NIL front, if revenue sharing models don't actually bring nationwide laws in terms of regulation on the NIL front, if we can still pay players to just play, if we can just give them money every month in their bank account, the schools like that are tied to billionaire boosters, they're going to keep buying whatever the hell they want. All right. But I'm telling you right now, I talked to Alabama folks. Their boosters are tired. Georgia boosters are tired. Florida boosters are skeptic, on the verge of being optimistic again. Florida State boosters are skeptic as hell, right? Ole Miss boosters are tired. Not everyone in college football has a Phil Knight. Oregon does. Not everyone in college football now has Larry Ellison's wife. Michigan does. Not everyone has Robert Rowling, who you guys probably don't know. Listen to this today. Worth $10.2 billion. All right, he's a big Texas Longhorn fan. Also, in a competing battle, his family and another family, the Jamals, I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, another billionaire tycoon that is a Texas Longhorn fan. Not everybody's got some of those. Some of these football programs do. And if we don't regulate it, we're going to have 6 New York Yankees back in the 1980s roaming around in college football and a bunch of other booster bases that are like, shit, man, I can't pay that anyways. I'm not Larry Ellison.
It's kind of funny how we've reverted to similar to what the system was in the 90s, to where now it's, instead of you can't pay the players at all, it's going to be There's a base salary based on rev share, and then all these under the tables are going to be done by boosters.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if there's actual regulation. I was optimistic. You guys have heard me for years talk about, oh, thank God, they finally are no longer going to be violating antitrust lawsuits, which means our federal government is going to be able to regulate some of this stuff. And the first piece of regulation they pass is that it has to pass through Title IX, the dumbest regulation that they could pass. So guess what? No longer optimistic that our sport's about to get saved by our federal government. Now, you skeptics out there, y'all were like, Brooksy, you really trusted the government to do anything good? I know, that's on me, right? I know, that's on me. I'm an idiot. But nonetheless, I don't know. I hope it gets better. I hope we're not always out in the Wild Wild West. But we are now.
I mean, I guess at least at this point, it just feels like the norm. I mean, you get more and more used to it. The more you get accustomed to it now, at least. It doesn't feel like as big of a shock, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Part of me, like, obviously there are things in the modern age of college football that were not there 20 years ago that have seriously, I would say, brought some form of detriment to the sport. But I think we were also, and the entire time, living in a dystopian society, and now the entire curtain has been taken back on that.
Yeah,
you see all the inner workings of that. You see everything on it now, to where I don't know if it's that much different. Everyone talks about how 20 years ago the sport was in such a better place. Was it, or did you just not know every single thing that was going on? Social media wasn't a thing. There wasn't open bidding wars out here of so-and-so's making this amount of money, so-and-so's making that. You can ask players in the 90s that they would go on recruiting visits and be handed duffel bags of money.
Shit, you can ask players in 2019.
Exactly. So it's not like things are super different. They're very different in certain instances. But I don't know if it's like, some people's like, this sport is unrecognizable. I don't know if it's like that.
K-Flow in the chat hits on my main problem with what we have going on right now. The funneling of money through nonprofits, right? Where I can just put money in, take money out of an LLC in some of these states and just literally, oh, you're my starting linebacker. Here's $30K at the start of every month. For being the starting linebacker. That right there, and not having any transparency about these actual contracts, not having anything to hold it year over year or retain the player, not have any transparency with actual offerings that are coming from other bidders, or have any legal requirements on these agents that are representing these players. The diversity of representation in this sport right now is insane. You got 5 stars that are represented by CAA and 3 stars that uncles pick up the phone and go, hey, what y'all got for my guy? You know what I mean? It's so crazy how just the differences in the amount of the disparity of representation. Speaking of disparity of representation, there's one guy. Now look, y'all watched the Arch Manning interview with Marty Smith today?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And y'all thought he came off like a real genuine down to earth cat, right?
He came off very likable in this.
I agree. Very, very likable. And man, he may be a unicorn. I want to preface what I'm about to go through and say that he may be just the most genuine, down-to-earth human being. He might be a unicorn, all right? But this also comes, this sit-down with Marty Smith and this Red Bull commercial come a week after the college football season hath concluded, and we are in the only dead week, and it's all about Arch. It's very planted. It's very planned, all right? And it's very coordinated. While being down to earth, I'm here for it. All right, but let's get into this. I love that at least he's saying the right things. And again, he may be 100% genuine in these words with the sit down with Marty Smith. But obviously signed with Red Bull as a Red Bull athlete, had a commercial out there. And then there's this article today that comes out from On3, and it kind of epitomizes my skepticism about the realness of this. The title is, quote, Arch Manning explains why he wanted to earn his NIL money. This is the very first paragraph. Archie Manning made one thing clear. Arch wouldn't sign NIL deals until he was a starter in Austin. Outside of an exclusive partnership with Panini America in 2023 and an appearance in EA College or Sports College Football 25 video game, that was indeed the case. He still remained a top name in college football as his On3 NIL valuation surged to $6.6 million. Title, Arch Manning waited to earn the right to make NIL money. First paragraph. Exclusive deal with Panini and EA College for 25. All right. So that's what I'm saying. There is a genuineness and a reality, but there's also the, hey, he is football royalty. This is football gold. This is what this is. I do appreciate, however, that he says the right things, right? Like, quote, I wanted to earn my money, work hard, get to know the players, kind of earn my way up, right? Talks about a guy, didn't want to be a guy rolling in with all this money when we have guys like Jake Majors, right? Great quarterback tip right here. Throw a shout out to a vet who has 40 starts here and not making any, and I'm taking all the money. I love that we do all of the talk. Meanwhile, we are very calculated and manufactured. Everything about this has been very calculated and manufactured. And guess what? It's working because you two are buying it and I'm buying it. I'm sitting here being a skeptic of it and buying it.
I don't
goes
know
to basketball games with the homies, sits in the front row. Like, he's a guy's guy. I'm here for it. It's also very calculated.
Well, I mean, I think it's also like, you know, everybody uses the term of like, we made the right person famous. It very well could be one of these situations.
I hope it is.
I
hope it is. Look, and maybe Archie and that family are that good of parents, and maybe they can create this type of, again, unicorn. That's what this is. This would be a unicorn for someone to come from this family and be the guy that got all the traits passed down to him and everything awarded to him and looks like it's on the horizon for him, and for him to be down to earth and genuine. I hope he's a unicorn, but he would be a unicorn.
And I think I think like almost him being that type of person frustrates people, because it's like you have everything, like everybody hypes you up. You're supposed to be this great college football prospect, and like you're super likable off of the field. Like there's no holes in this whatsoever. And I think LeBron can be thrown into this a little bit too, of like people hate LeBron. But one of the reasons why I think people hate LeBron is LeBron doesn't do anything wrong. Like he's never involved in things of like, oh, LeBron's doing the wrong things here, or LeBron's saying the wrong things. Like he's a likable guy. He's a family guy. Like all these other things. Like I think sometimes you can have these people and it almost like fuels into this hatred of them. Like, where can we get this guy? Like, where's the slack in this rope?
I just love that they are football's first family that's selling genuine down to earth. That's what they're selling to America. We are down to earth.
I mean, I don't even know if it's they're like selling it. Like the idea that this has all been manufactured by the Manning camp. Like, how much of this is also ESPN being like, this is the face of our marketing, we have to push this out there. Like if the Mannings really wanted Arch Manning to be that popular, he would have been doing all of these things. It would certainly have been that.
I think they know they don't even have to try. That's the thing.
There's probably some truth to it. And I mean, there's calculations, obviously. I don't think it's that we're trying to sell Arch as this down-to-earth guy. I think he genuinely is a down-to-earth guy. Like, the Panini thing, that is what it is. The EA one, remember, he wasn't even going to be in the video game at first. He talked about how he was not going to be in that game.
And you didn't think that was a leverage play?
It might have been, but again...
Might have been.
Oh, Arch Manning not in the video game?
A month before the release, they did a commercial with him
I was
and
about
Eli.
to say, it was like...
I'm sure, look, I'm sure there is certainly calculated things going on here. But the reality of it is that...
They are the Kennedys of football. They are the Clintons of football. These types of high-powered people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars do not make decisions without 100% calculation. I do not believe that.
I don't not believe what you're saying, but also saying like the Kennedys and Clintons implies that like there's a lot of sketchy shit behind the scenes.
Oh, no, I mean to go that way. But I'm just talking about royalty. That's the closest thing we have to royalty, but we have a different political system than over there. But that's the closest thing to royalty we have in terms of family who have been in power in this country. And in terms of football power, it's the Mannings. Yeah. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
And I think chat's kind of getting to some of the stuff right now that we're hinting at of, is Sark an idiot or is Arch just not any good? Because we haven't seen Arch start yet. And like he hasn't taken over yet. So there must be some questions are hindering of his skill level.
I think there was too much loyalty to Quinn Ewers.
And loyalty to Quinn Ewers, but I think there's also some loyalty from Arch Manning as well. Yeah. Of like, I came here, this is where I'm going to go. Of like, why didn't he go somewhere where he could start right away? He's not like a lot of the other 5-star quarterbacks. Like, I'm going to go somewhere I got to play. I'm going to hit the portal if I don't earn the job.
They've been very open about playing 2 more years.
Yeah.
He's draft eligible this year. They've been very open about staying for 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, the
when
biggest...
they actually speak to the media through handlers or connected pieces that come out only on ESPN National. Continue.
The biggest takeaway I have from it, actually watching the interview and seeing him sit down with Marty Smith and not just reading the article that basically glosses over a lot of the things, is he's a 19-year-old kid that is very humble, very down to earth, has been brought up basically being told his entire life, you're going to have to earn everything because this name that you have is something. There are calculated moves that have been taking place to excel his likability, which is absolutely fine. That's done everywhere in sports. That's done everywhere in media. I think he's a genuine guy.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest takeaway from watching him.
And look, it's working. It's working. It's working on me. I'm skeptic while thinking I think he is a unicorn. I think he could be this. Just don't want to, dropped on a Wednesday, 10 days after the college football season concluded, when we ain't got shit to talk about but the Senior Bowl and Arch Manning.
But I mean, is that a Manning thing, or is that ESPN being like, hey, we need a face to throw in front of fans right now?
I think it's both, and that's okay.
It's fine.
That's okay. Let's stay on Texas. They added Hero Canoe today, or yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
In the last 48 hours.
Hero Canoe yesterday, 6'4", I'm gonna say. I think he's listed at 6'5". I actually had a chance to eyeball Hero at what would that be? The national championship. What that would have been?
Media availability.
The national championship media availability, practice availability. I don't think he's 6'5". I think he's about 6'3" and a quarter, maybe 6'3" and a half. He's definitely 330 pounds. He's a big kid, real thick in the midsection. And I wouldn't say he carries it tremendously. I think he carries it okay, pretty well. Played very little at Ohio State, recorded 4 tackles in 2 seasons. They don't rotate as much at Ohio State as maybe some other schools do. Their horses kind of get ran pretty good during their defensive rotations. So it's a talented football player. Here's what I will say about every guy that Texas has taken on the defensive line, in my mind, over the last 2.5 years. They're all dudes. They're all really, really good football players. They all move really well. I think this is a guy they're hoping replaces the size that Bill Norton brought them on short yardage situations.
I mean, credit to Texas's defensive line scouting. Like, they've had a very solid front 5 and 6 throughout the last 2 or 3, basically since they really took off as a program. So it might be a skeptical move at first, but it's one that at the end of the day you trust. Like, these are guys that have produced some of the best college football talent on the defensive line front in the last 2 years. So you trust the moves they're making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, look, anytime, and we said it when we did Texas's to-do list of, we got to figure out where the talent is going to be on this defense because you lost so many key players. Adding, even if he is just a depth piece, like at worst, Hero Canoe is just a depth piece for Texas. He's a guy you rotate in occasionally. That's still a win, in my opinion. If that's what you get out of the portal, if that's what you get from him, you at least addressed a need that you had defensively. Yep. Doesn't have to be some flashy, this guy might be a top 2-round pick in the NFL draft. Like, if he is just a contributor on defense, I think that's a win in this situation for them.
How many playable guys in the portal were there even there for a school like Texas? The answer is very few. This is one of those guys that, despite not playing a ton, was heavily recruited when he was in the portal. I think he took visits to Alabama, Georgia, and Texas within 36 hours.
Yeah,
and then committed to Texas.
But I mean, is that the kind of
3 horses,
the D-line bonus that we've seen? Because far and away they've been.
We saw this at the end of the cycle in the spring, even, I think last year.
I think it's fair.
D-tackle, like Kristen Miller at the portal, because D tackles were getting stupid money.
I think it's fair to say that defensive tackle and quarterback are the 2 most valuable positions when it comes to the transfer portal.
Yeah.
With maybe wide receivers coming third.
Wide receivers are overpaid right now, I think. And God forbid if there's a starting running back that enters the portal.
Yeah. But there's only 1 or 2 of those that come in.
Yeah, every year. I don't know. I don't know. I am genuinely concerned about the product of players, not the product of football, what it looks like, because all we really care about is tight games in a general fan's consensus standpoint. I care about the quality when I turn it on, what the guys look like, what the physical bodies look like. Looking at 2026's recruiting across the board, hopefully it's a blimp. I hope it's a blimp. Nationally, it does not look very great. It concerns me so bad that, like we talked about this the other night, every 2027 good players reclassing right now into 2026. That's how bad the class is.
Yeah, and it's certainly interesting in that because you hear this at the NFL level now, how the product that college football teams are giving the NFL is diminished, and it's not what it once was, and rookies aren't the same this year. And then you turn on your TV and it's Brock Bowers just had the most incredible rookie season for a tight end. Yeah. Ladd McConkey lit it up this year. Jaden Daniels almost took his team to a 6-win team to a Super Bowl. So I mean, it's interesting because there are certain examples where it's like, well, is it really that diminished? But
Well, I think too, you see this in sports in general. Like you talked about the NFL draft. I think the NBA draft was viewed as this last year, where the Atlanta Hawks have the number 1 pick. Who the heck are you going to take with the number 1 overall pick this year? Because the class just seems so dwindled. I think the only sport where this doesn't really happen is baseball, because you're plucking from so many different countries and regions.
It always feels like that anyways.
And you're picking from high school players, college players, like anything and everything you can find.
yeah.
Chat's talking about my affinity for thick thighs, thick lowers,
Yeah, you like what you like, man.
skinny ankles. ESPN top 100 games. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so ESPN did a list this year of kind of ranking the top 100 games, as in the top 100 games as far as they were close. So I figured that'd be kind of interesting for us. Me and Jay Will went and read the list and made our own. Would you like to know the number 5, like the top 5 games? I can give you those real quick because
I want your list.
you want my list.
Yeah. To hell with this national media. We're national media.
All
now.
right.
Give me your list.
All right, so at number 10, I have Georgia versus Texas in the SEC Championship.
Hell yeah.
Really good game, but wasn't super exciting. Wasn't a lot of plays where you're like,
Old
wow.
school foosball.
Exactly.
Slobber knocker.
Yes, felt more like the 2018 Super Bowl, and that was a close game, but there wasn't a lot of exciting plays going on. You didn't walk away from that going like, that's one of the best games I've ever seen. But nonetheless, really cool game. Had a great moment with Coach
I was this
Dawson.
close to tweeting it was a national title game. Good thing I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
It felt like one of those types of games, and the rest of a couple of those moving forward in the playoffs felt like that, where it was like any possession could be the possession that changes this one.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that feel like title games to me, and it was an SEC title game.
Number 9 on my list, I have Georgia Tech versus UNC. People probably don't remember how this game went. UNC erased like a 2-score deficit with like 5 minutes left in the game, only for them to give up a 67-yard rushing touchdown with the last 16 seconds of the game. It was literally Tech was trying to run out the clock for overtime.
Grant Key's done this a couple times, huh?
Yeah.
Won a couple of big games that he shouldn't, and at the end of the year, you're like, wow. Georgia Tech was 7-6. Hey, they should have been 6-7.
Well, I mean, they should have beat UNC like a drum either way. But no, that was a really good game. Number 8 on my list, I have Vanderbilt, Alabama. Don't really need to explain that one. It was a great game, but it was also one of those games where it wasn't a super close back and forth game. It was kind of just waiting to see how Vanderbilt was going to blow this lead and how Alabama was going to overcome it and save the day again. And it got to a point where it's like, oh, wait. That's not going to happen. Vanderbilt's going to win, and that made it a great game. Number 6, NIU versus Notre Dame. Another one of those just...
You were glued to the TV, huh?
Well, it's like, is this going to happen the entire time? And by the time you go, it's like, oh my God, it did. That was incredible. Number 5, I have UCF versus TCU. I think this was the comeback of the year, honestly. People forget that TCU had a 27-point lead at halftime. UCF came back to diminish that, score within final minutes of the game, took the lead and won that there. Number 4, I have Clemson versus SMU in the ACC Championship. Really good game. Clemson jumps out to an incredible lead. SMU comes back to tie it up.
It was one of those, you start watching Modern Family midway through the second quarter, midway through the fourth, you get a notification. Tight ball game. Oh, shit.
Whoa.
That definitely didn't happen to me, but I bet it happened to some of you guys.
Number 3, I have Ole Miss versus LSU. This was one of those just explosive college football games, back and forth, overtime. The Kyron Lacey touchdown at the end of the game.
Lights go out.
Infamous 4 verts 3 straight times, Jackson
Yeah.
Dart. Let's see what we could do.
That was- I
Chuck
was like,
it up to the end zone every play.
That's when I
That
was
was
like,
first and 22. They took a hold. Oh, my God, man.
Never forget that.
Number 2 on this list,
Bro
I have
spamming 4 verts trying to hit the tight end.
He gonna
across the
hit
middle of the
once.
field. Gotta hit once.
Hit once.
Sorry, Kirby. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. Number 2, I have Georgia versus Georgia Tech for obvious reasons. 8 overtimes. Georgia erased a 2-score deficit with 5 minutes left in the game. Don't really need to go into much detail about that one. That was a fantastic game to watch. And number 1, as the best game of the year in my opinion, Texas versus Arizona State. This felt like the game that we watched this in the hotel. It was a
pinned
game
up, terrified.
you watched the game thinking Arizona State let this one go. They had a punt return for a touchdown.
The box score's hilarious.
Yeah, they outgained Texas by a bunch. It was like,
Beat
man,
them on third down. Beat them on first downs.
just-
Beat them on time of possession.
it was just like, man, Arizona State let this one slip away. And then it was like, wait a minute. They're back in it. Quinn Ewers just threw another pick. Oh my God, they're going to tie it up, and then it went to double overtime. And
Sir floats a lot, just putting it up in the air.
Texas was missing field goals left and right, just could not put that game away. Went to overtime, and ultimately Texas was able to win it and finish it off. But one of the better games. Also, one of those games where everyone in the nation, I feel like, was cheering for Arizona State. Like that was the underdog story. That would have been the quote Cinderella run we had in the playoffs, but was not meant to be.
I somewhat have a similar list to you. I also had Georgia versus Texas at number 10. All around solid game. I had Clemson versus SMU number 9. I thought it was a great game. Obviously, it had a lot on the line for both programs, and more so Clemson. And I think a lot of people were like, dang, Dabo Swinney's really going to crap this one away, and they're going to miss the playoffs because they blew a lead. But number 8 for me is Texas A&M versus Auburn. That was a 4 overtime football game. Absolute insanity for that one. Almost felt like, Auburn finally got themselves one. They finally got back into the win column, pulled off the upset against Texas A&M. Great game. Then I had Arizona State versus Texas. I thought it was a good football game, not really top 5 level for me. I thought it was great that Arizona State came in and won that, or came in and brought it close, but didn't feel like it was all that big of a game to me, in my opinion, just because it kind of ended up being what we expected.
It was nice that we got the Scatterbo show even against Texas.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah.
Arizona State put up a fight. They didn't get blown out. That's good for college football. Next on my list, I have Colorado versus Baylor. This was one of those classic Colorado
Hail
football
Mary
games. Yeah. Classic one where
my God, I forgot about that
the
game.
Buffaloes squeak by yet again in the closing minutes, and they found a way to win. Just again, a classic Shedeur Sanders and Deion
I've heard
Sanders
from
football
athletes
game.
that that's a sneaky good home field advantage. It's one of those fields that they feel like they're on top of you. Colorado.
Huh.
I think it only sits like 40,000, but it's a bowl in a hillside that's like on top of you.
I wonder if that's also an elevation thing.
I was more talking about environment. These were from recruits that were there, not playing.
Okay.
But you're right. Playing up there in the elevation, it's not easy.
No.
I mean, at least pro teams get like a whole 3 or 4 days to travel up there. I don't think college teams do. It's tough. Have you ever been up there?
I've not.
No.
Woo. First 36 hours, you feel it. I'm dead serious. Like you immediately, you're like, it's just thinner. It's harder to get the peak of your VO2 max, if you will.
Yep.
Really hard to reach for deep breaths.
Interesting. Getting into my top 5 now, I have Vandy versus Bama at number 5. You and I kind of talked about this before the show. This one, the entire time you're watching, felt like Vandy's not really going to do this. Vanderbilt's going to act like they're going to win this football game. That Bama's going to do what they typically do. I mean, this was just a week removed from beating Georgia. So nobody really had it in their thought process that Bama was actually going to lose this game. And then they actually ended up doing it.
And the way Vandy did it with the explosives and the kill shots, the 4th and 2 touchdown. Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's
12, I think it's 12 of 19 on 3rd down, boxing their ass.
That was go ahead.
This was shortly removed from Vanderbilt losing to Georgia State.
Hell yeah.
Everything about this fell out of possibilities for Vanderbilt to pull off this upset.
Out of pocket.
Straight up. Number 4, I have Miami versus Syracuse. This was one of those crazy comeback games.
Yeah.
Fran Brown gets to get a shower.
Well, late night Friday night, right?
I don't think this was Friday.
Oh,
I think
this
this
Friday night ACC SmackDown.
I thought Saturday game.
This was a Saturday game.
Okay.
Fran Brown gets a shower because he won a football game. He deserved it.
Oh, yeah. It's a good time.
Good quotes. Number 3, Georgia versus Georgia Tech, 8 overtimes. One of the most historic football games you'll ever see. Number 2, Ohio State versus Oregon. I think that ESPN had this outside of the top 10.
The first matchup?
Yeah, the first time around, not the playoff one.
Lord, no.
The first time around where Christian was very upset with how Will Howard ended this football game.
Oh, my God.
And then number 1, Georgia versus Alabama.
I do think no different than Josh Heupel sneaking by at the end of that Arkansas game because of what Nico did on 4th down. Him blowing up the timeout on a 2-minute situation, trying to get a perfect play. You can't burn your last time out there. I felt like Ohio State got bamboozled by on the sideline too. They ran 7 seconds off the clock trying to get the right formation in right before that play. And then they get that 12th man maneuver from Dan Lanning. There's a lot leading up to that other than Will Howard just pissing down his leg.
Whole lot. But the pissing down the leg was like, we had such a great finish. We had whether it was going to be a missed field goal, a made field goal, a Hail Mary touchdown, something great was going to happen. And Will Howard just pissed the game away.
But it didn't matter.
Nope. Regular season doesn't matter
Nope.
at all.
It means less.
Streets are talking.
Non-lovers.
Non-ball lovers.
Non-ball.
This cool team. What's up with this cool team?
All right.
I've got the two, but before you get into this, sometimes Kirby does all the show notes, first of all. And then throughout the day, Jonathan and I kind of add what we want. Most of the shell of the show comes from Kirby. So a little golf clap for Kirby right there.
Thank you all.
Normally, when I read something on there, I'm like, I don't know where Mans is going to go this. I'm not even going to bother reading some of these things like this Action Network Magic Team or Cool Team. I'm just going to come up with my own. So the coolest team I've ever watched, D'Anthony Thomas Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
Them mofos were cool as shit. And the USC Trojans with Reggie Bush and Lindell White. Matt Leinart was pretty cool. But give me the backs. That football team was cool, man.
That was a very cool
Those linebackers, oh man, that team was cool. Now, what was the segment actually about, Kirby?
So Action Network decided they wanted to discuss what the, quote, coolest teams were in college football, and they had an actual methodology for it, and they did actual calculations. The way they did it was they collected stats from each team's revenue, their microbreweries near campuses, so their bars and things like that, tailgating scene, city population.
Wait a minute. Your microbrew is important of how cool you are?
That's what it's called.
So
How hoppy are you, bro?
Shoot the messenger.
What I'm gathering here is
Creatures is loaded.
we had some nerds pick who's the coolest football team this past year.
How solid's
much.
your APA?
It also factored in city population, search volume for tailgating, current rankings, championships won, and the current season win-loss record. So they did all of those things, threw it into a model, and this team came out as the coolest college football team. Would you like to guess who it was?
It's going to be some bogus.
The Wisconsin Badgers.
Oh boy, no, that would be insane. This team got a perfect, quote, cool score of 100. It's the Texas Longhorns. Because of the city of Austin being super cool. There's multiple bars to be around. They're a historic football program with 4 national titles. They had a 13-3 record this year, and they had justify over 450,000 attractions alone. The second coolest team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, with a 97 score. Third coolest.
I've only driven through Columbus. I'm gonna say probably doesn't hold weight to Austin. Is that fair?
I would assume not.
But I guess their local beer does numbers.
It gets better.
Okay.
The number 3 coolest team, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
All right. Look, here's the deal, man. They got 2,500 students on campus with a collective GPA of 4.25. Ain't shit cool.
Yeah.
Nerds picked this list.
Super nerds.
It's all metrics.
Hey,
Super
they had that
nerds.
Matthew McConaughey guy at all their football games. That's pretty cool. They flew drones.
Have you seen that leather jacket?
The leather jacket is pretty nice, I will say. Number 4.
He wears it for every Texas Longhorns game. Has for 2 decades.
Yeah.
I went back and watched that pregame little skit between him and Will Ferrell. Guess what he's got on?
The leather
The
jacket.
The leather jacket. Dude's got billions rocking the leather jacket to a crisp.
Number 4, the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm fine with that one. It's a historic program. The last 15 years, they've won like 7 natties in that time. No problem with them being number 4.
No Miami on this list?
Miami's number 7. Number 5 is USC, a team that hasn't really done anything in 15 years.
So this is a list for just last year or in
It
totality?
factors in last year's record combined with their championships, their annual
And
revenue.
microbrew sales.
So, yeah, that's so
much.
random to me. Like we bring in all these numbers and then randomly microbreweries. That strikes me as something that's really cool.
I just find it funny that Georgia was ranked 6th behind USC, Notre Dame, and Texas. Georgia had a score of 80. Texas had a score of 100, so 20 points cooler than Georgia. Very interesting.
But those D'Anthony Thomas Oregon Ducks, man, those were cool.
They were pretty cool. Where did Oregon land on this list? Oregon's not even in the top 10.
Let a bunch of nerds.
Texas A&M is 10, Florida 9, Michigan 8, Miami 7, Georgia 6.
So it's not even. Where's Arizona State?
It's only 10.
Huh. I thought it was just like a party school list.
Here we go. Oregon 11, Penn State 12, LSU 13, Tennessee 14. The Illinois Fighting Illini at 15.
Is that in Chicago? Where's that school?
I don't know.
I have no
I
idea.
have to imagine it's probably.
Isn't it Bloomington?
No, that's where Indiana's at.
Oh.
Then it's TCU, Minnesota, Clemson,
though.
Oklahoma.
I thought that's what we said, honestly.
SMU. It's not a great list. The reason I wanted to do this was kind of as a talking point and one to show you that metrics don't always work out. So, a little interesting segment, I thought. Texas is the coolest
I used to get
school.
into a huge knockdown, drag-out argument with a former colleague of mine at scouting events when he would create his own metric systems. And he'd be like, it takes the bias out of everything because we're putting numbers to them. And I say, hey, man, how are you establishing those numbers? Well, I'm putting a value on it. Oh, so you're putting a value on the metric system? Yeah, I am. Bias. Hello. I get into arguments with him all the time. Like, no. This is metric system.
With all that said, I will probably write an article about this tomorrow. So
Say less. I hope you guys read it.
hate read it at that.
I hope you read it.
I hope you
Leave
read
the
it.
microbrewery stuff out.
Yeah, leave the microbrew.
Or at least put it in the bottom paragraph.
They didn't even quote Creature's sales.
Nah.
Bias. To-do list.
Let's hit it.
Alabama, you are up next. Okay, Alabama 9-3 regular season, 9-4 overall after a bowl game loss to Michigan. Who wants to go first? I've got 5 things to do.
I have 5 as well. Do you want me to list mine off real quick?
Come on with it.
First one, and this is the most important one, you have to do a complete overhaul of your offensive system. Not a complete overhaul, but a tweaking in the way that it was very clear that last year's system that Kalen DeBoer had developed was built through what can Jalen Milroe do very well and staying away from what he can't do very well. Problem is, Jalen Milroe had spurts throughout the year where it was, hey, I'm going to turn the ball over a good bit. Watch this. So you have to find a system that is not predicated on what he can do as an athlete, because he's a one-of-one athlete at the quarterback position, but he also turns the ball over at an alarming rate. That's number one.
These ones that you are going to repeat of mine, I'm just going to add on to you to save the listener some time. You are 100% right. DeBoer had to alter everything that it is about his passing game and his run game to morph into the identity that this roster had, right? This quarterback and this offensive line, which is something that I might let you talk about, but you might have it on there. Their run game has got to get back to what they do too.
Yes.
I mean, the whole system, offensive passing game and running game, has to get back to doing what they do. I thought their offensive line got better at being asked to do athletic things towards the end of the year. They're going to get asked to do more and more as these bigger guys start to move out of their roster, like Tyler Booker, who's a great offensive lineman. He's great doing this. He's not as great doing this, which is what their running game normally asked at Washington.
Yeah, that kind of segues into my next one, is develop some sort of team identity.
Yeah.
You knew what a Nick Saban team was all about. They're not going to make mistakes. They're hard-nosed. They're going to come after you. All the things that Nick Saban really, really preached. Those things disappeared under this Alabama team. They were undisciplined at times. They were flashy at times. You know, I think that's what you get with a player-led organization such as what Kalen DeBoer's kind of preached. But you need to emphasize the fact that you have some form of identity. Whether that is you're going to be flashy, whether it is you're going to be hard-nosed, whether it is you're going to be disciplined. It felt like Alabama was just kind of a group of players at times playing games out there that didn't really have a direction of things. I think you need to develop an identity. Did you have that, or do you want?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, next one I have is maintain your defensive output. I felt like despite what happened with Vanderbilt, where they exposed them in certain things, where they were going to stay in whatever coverages they wanted to, Alabama's defense was not that much of an issue this year. There were certain spurts of it where it was like, hey, what's going on here? But that Michigan game, I think, was the best example of it. That defense played lights out. Michigan got the ball inside their own 40 like 3 times and walked away with like 12 points.
Basically lose their entire linebacking core and Malachi Moore out of the back end. So yeah, but they played a lot of young DBs last year too, so that helps. And Devontae Smith transferred out too, so there's 4, 5 really big starters in that second, third level.
You're going to have to reload, absolutely, but you need to find a way to maintain that defensive output.
And not only that, it ties into something I have here. I think they have to find ways to become even more multiple, and they will in year 2 of Kane Womack being there as a defensive coordinator. He was known as a split coverage guy coming from South Alabama. I think they got bogged down the first 6-7 months being there of just figuring out who we have. You know what I mean? Not necessarily installing everything that we can do, but just trying to figure out what my players do best and then manufacturing game plans as they come. I think they're going to be able to be a little bit more multiple in year 2 of Womack.
Next one I have is develop Ty Simpson to take care of the football. last year with Jalen Murrow, the reasons Alabama was in trouble or lost games was because they got put in situations, with the exception of the Georgia game where it was just a second half explosion from Georgia. You look back at that South Carolina game, you look back at Vanderbilt, you look back at Michigan, you look back at the games where things were close for Alabama, even that Auburn game for the first half, it was because they had turnovers that allowed teams to get back in. You don't need Ty Simpson to be an otherworldly athlete to make things and go like, oh my God, if he's playing his best, he's unstoppable. I think if Ty Simpson can take care of the ball first and foremost of anything, you're going to be in a very good offensive position, because we've seen Kellen DeBoer offensive systems. They do work. You don't have to be an otherworldly player. It helps if you can be, but as long as you're taking care of the football, and that's kind of a basic one, but it's very important.
Go ahead, J-Will.
Really, the two things that I have that you haven't already really hit on is I feel like they got to find a star, or at least their next star, and the back two levels of the defense. You had Jahad Campbell, and I know they have Quay Rousseau.
Jalen Mbakwe, who they retained.
Yeah, and I know they have Keon Saab coming back as well, I believe. So I think they have some pieces that could emerge as that, but I think you truly need a difference maker at one of those spots, whether it be the linebacker level or it's somewhere in your secondary. I think you got to find that.
And the guy who had the interception in the game against Georgia was a true freshman, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So
there's some young guys
for sure
they're going to need to step up.
So I think they can find that this spring, or at some point in this offseason. I think that's just one of the things that I would want if I were on the staff or an Alabama fan. The last one, you just got to clean up the discipline, in my opinion. I feel like there were so many points in the season where Alabama was making stupid mistakes, even if it was crashing out on the football field against Vanderbilt because you're upset about how things are going. Tell your coach to basically F off. Can't have moments like that, because I think it kind of really, and I think that it kind of provides what feels like these turning points in a season where your own people are against you.
I think this football team had way too many ups and downs this year, right? Way too many moments where we look like the nation's best football team, followed by a week where we lose to Oklahoma. It's just way too many ups and downs, and I think a lot of that is too much inconsistency potentially in the way that they practice, or maybe even the way that they go about their business inside the building. And I do think there was maybe a propensity or an unwillingness to be a hard-nosed, I'm going to get on these guys type of football coach. Not that Kellen DeBoer ever was, or ever would be, but they just left one of the biggest disciplinarians in the world in Nick Saban. So maybe he didn't want to come through ruling with an iron fist. Everything that I've heard out of Alabama this last year was guys that they just didn't practice very hard. They practiced like they were a professional football team, like they could kind of just, stay healthy, roll the ball out on Saturday and beat the teams that were on their schedule. And I think that reared its ugly head. But I also think part of that theology and part of that thought process with him was maybe that I'm not going to come in here and push these guys and try to make them fear me. I'm going to make them respect me and earn their respect first. And then as these guys, stick around year after year, then we'll get into our firm processes of this is how we expect things to be around here. And then the last one that didn't get hit on, okay? I think we all on this desk or on this stage and in the chat can all agree Ryan Williams has got about 30 games left in a college football uniform.
If that.
If that. Okay, maybe you get 34 because you play 17-game seasons the next 2 years. But you got about 30 games left of Ryan Williams. So you're a third of that career. You better squeeze everything you can out of number 2 over the next 2 years, because he ain't going to be there long.
Yeah.
I think that goes without saying.
It goes quick.
And it goes quick. We watch it I feel like, oh my God, we got 2 more years of KJ Bolt. It's going to go like that, just like it did with Malachi.
I feel like
the Oregon interception, it was like yesterday in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He gone.
I feel like as a Georgia fan, we're like, dude, Brock Bowers is only a freshman. We're fine. And now he's going to be going into his second year in the NFL. Like, it goes that quick. So
it goes that quick. As did this first hour. We got a second one coming up right now.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape.
We got a tiny hands chat going on in the discussion, or a discussion in the chat right now. And I think Kenny Pickett was referenced.
Yes.
Guys, Kenny Pickett wears 2 gloves for reasons because he can't hold on to the football. The Duke is much wider. The NFL football is a much wider football. It requires a much bigger hand. And it's not the length of your fingers, it's actually the width of your hand, the measurement from your pinky finger to your thumb, because that's what I really hold the football with. If you look at the 2 main points of contact when I hold a ball, it's that thumb and it's that pinky across that football, okay? And I got to be able to have some actual space left in my hand. Don't know if you can see that. Left under here where the thumb rests. Okay, so yeah, hand size in my opinion, I used to think it didn't matter. I was one of these guys that's like, oh, well, who cares? So-and-so's got tiny hands. That was until I started throwing NFL footballs. And I'm like, oh, ow. This hurts. This requires more hand strength and more grip strength than anything else. One of the most famous, and he just led the league in passing, Joe Burrow, constantly has wrist problems. The reason being, he's rolling that wrist over, holding that football constantly. He's always doing this, and his wrist hurts constantly because the football is bigger. It's wider and broader. So, yeah. There's that. Welcome to our local hour. We got a loaded one for you. Does Georgia need a 1,000-yard rusher? We'll tell you why or why not. We got UGA player comps coming for you guys tonight. Going to talk about 5 football players and who they remind us of. We got some Senior Bowl updates for you guys. Colby Young, a development in that news story today. And what would it take for Gunner or Nate Frazier to win a Heisman? But first and foremost, I want to give a quick shout out, because I forgot in our national hour, to our friends over at Better. If you're looking for a new place this basketball season, okay, to place player props, enter more than or less than key stats for your favorite players over on Better. And if you use promo code Brooks today, you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $200 over there. Again, that's promo code Brooks. Head over to Better today and get in on the action. Look at that graphic, man. Look at that right there. Wow. Shout out to our friends over at Better. Use that promo code today. Support those who support us. Boys, let's start the local hour with some big important news. A commitment dropped today. Zach Fort, out of Zachariah, if you will, out of IMG Academy. It's a ball player, boys. 5'10", 190 pounds, an absolute striker. Okay, This dude strikes with the helmet. All right, he brings pop in the pads. I think he fits first in the star position mold for the University of Georgia. He's a downhill seeker of contact with football instincts and playmaking ability. That is a star. That guy needs to be in the extended box area, in my opinion. I texted a few people at IMG Academy today. Obviously, a very well-known football program with really, really good football coaches. Was talking to a member of their defensive staff today. All he could talk about was just how much about football this guy is, just how much he loves the game of football, how smart he is, and how dedicated to the sport he is. Now, I know a lot of football coaches say a lot of good things about football players. This IMG staff, at least the people I talk to from the IMG staff, they're almost truthful to a fault. If they don't like a kid, they're going to let you know. I mean, it's a professional organization. They're not going to lie, all right? They have guys there that have come from college ranks most of the time. Loves football. And I think this perhaps is the most important thing in today's world of college football. This kid's been knocking on Georgia's door to get in the class for a good little minute now, and they greenlit him today. So you have a football player who loves football, and you have a football player who wanted to come to the University of Georgia. And by the way, top 100 consensus football player.
Checks a lot of boxes.
Checks a lot of boxes. Let's shut up and let's grind the tape. All right, a little spoiler alert. I have seen this. I have watched this. The drip is immaculate on this football player. I love the willingness to strike, though. That's why I want this guy close to the box. I had to send out some feelers about general testing measurements, because I think what you're going to see on this, I don't see a lot of poo. I don't see a lot of flash. I don't see a lot of twitch. I do see a lot of muscle mass, okay? And a guy that can really, like I said, play behind his pads as a downhill force player like this right here, okay? When he hits you, you're going to feel it, all right? That's American heritage. The other thing you like about taking kids out of IMG Academy, guys, almost all of these IMG Academy kids are coming out of 4-2-5 mint front split coverage defenses. What is that? That's what Georgia plays. You daggum right. That's exactly what Georgia plays. So you're going to come into Georgia having at least the first install probably relatively similar. Okay, the terminology that they use, the verbiage that they use, it's going to be relatively comfortable for you as a young football player. slipped out of our stance there as well. All right. Body caught it, but we're making plays. We have instincts to get downhill, notice that overthrow, and make a play.
You almost have to body catch a play like that, though.
Yeah, you're right. I do love his ability to, all right, this right here. All right, and this is why I'm okay with this being on the highlight film. I would have put this one as my first highlight film or highlight clip as a rusher. We saw the first clip, him kind of adding to the box and sacking the quarterback, running him down. That's great. I love this clip because we throw a hand swipe in here, which means, all right, we're a really good football player situationally when we get put into those. I guarantee you this isn't a guy that practices swiping hands down of an offensive lineman very often. This is a natural football player. We get a left tackle, boom, overhand swipe. Now we're going to sink the rip in right here and bend the hoop to run the quarterback down. That is a really, really football instincts. The football IQ is really, really high when you see something like that from a defensive back coming downhill making a play.
Yeah, this is a star.
All right. It's a star all day. All these clips are guys. All these clips are going to be downhill. He's going to be running downhill. You're not going to see a ton of turning and running. All right. That was the other thing I got from the IMG. Yeah. That's the other thing I got from the IMG staff. They'll even, when they play like a heavy 12 personnel team, instead of bumping into base personnel, they'll just bump him in as the Willie and let him play as an in-the-box linebacker because he's physical enough to do so on the high school level. It's got star written all over it to me. Okay. Like you said, Curb. Block avoidance too, right? And what I love about that, right, is dip and rip. But we do block avoidance. We avoid blocks when we have time to do so. What you'll see on this kid's tape, all right, is when, all right, so you're pressing me as a blocker and the ball carrier's right behind you. I don't have time to avoid the block. Now I've actually got to press the block, send it back to my help. You see the physicality like an in-box linebacker. He'll do that. But in that position right there, you had 2 or 3 yards between the blocker and the ball carrier. We have time to avoid the block and still get back into the play. It's a selective time when you want to do that. I don't want to see guys dipping and avoiding contact all the time. Boom. We're going to play the ball, not the man right there, okay? We're going to dislodge the football, not try to take the head off of the tight end. Okay, this is against Lakeland, I'm pretty sure, right here. So a lot of speed on the field. He's taking the inside breaker to drive down. He's going to make a hit.
Lord.
Yeah. I do think this is a quicker than fast football player. All right. All again, reasons why I kind of want him playing in the box. We're going to see him play deep safety right here. And again, running downhill, striking. Okay. Running downhill and striking. That's what this guy does. And by the way, what's up?
I would say I would question vertical coverage.
Yeah, the ability to turn and run, right? And look, and this is where I was going next. I always look at how your coordinators use you, all right? It tells me what they think of your skill set. They see you way more than I do. Hell, I'm watching 4 minutes of a high school highlight tape, the best of what you do. All right, so let's look at what the coach is doing. This entire clip, guys, we've been seeing them play split field safety, right? We've been seeing them roll him into the box and have this safety run the middle of the field. That tells me they probably think this guy's a better ball player, right? Or not ball player, but player of the ball in the air. You know what I mean? He can go run it down, play deep field safety a little bit more. Good click right there. Come down, boom. I like the eval. I like that you got a guy who loves football. I think that nowadays, and by the way, have you listened to Nick Sirianni talk about why he drafts Georgia football players?
They love
because they love football, man. Yeah, they're all really, really talented. This kid has started at IMG Academy for 4 years. I think he's the first 4-time captain. I think my man Ben Woke tweeted that out today. So first-time, 4-time captain at IMG Academy.
Wow.
It's a guy. All right, it's an absolute guy. Now, is he Jet Washington? Is he 6'5", 203 pounds, the nephew of Kobe Bryant? No. But he's a ball player. All right, he's a ball player. He's a leader, and he wants to come to the University of Georgia. You greenlight that kid immediately, and that's what they did today. So I think it's a good addition. It reminds me of if Ja'Cory Thomas came from a blue chip school. And that kid's a little thicker.
Yeah.
That kid's a lot thicker than Ja'Cory.
I think you trade size for speed between him and Ja'Cory.
Not a Jonell profile.
No.
There. But maybe a better mover than Jonell. Jonell's real stiff and twitched.
Yeah.
Real muscular. All right. Very linear athlete.
Horsepower.
Yeah. Yeah, where this might be a drifter. Mm-hmm. It might be a drift car.
All right, now we're talking.
Yeah?
I
like that?
I like a good car reference.
Hell yeah. Shout out Zach Fort and the University of Georgia for that edition today. Kirby, you put it in the show notes. Does Georgia need a 1,000-yard rusher? What say you, my man?
All right, so we all know that it's been now going on 6 seasons since Georgia has had a 1,000-yard rusher. Last one to do it was DeAndre Swift in 2019 with 1,200 yards. There's been a handful of talented running backs that come through there, and there has not been one this year. Now, you go into this 2025 season expecting that we've got Gunnar Stockton. We might have some more questions than ever at the wide receiver position, even though we've gone to the transfer portal to subsequently add players to that room. You're probably going to expect running the football more. With that said, there's also some questions in the running back room. The only real proven factor is Nate Frazier. Other than that, it's Branson Robinson, who we don't know his health. Roderick Robinson, we don't know his health. Cash Jones might not necessarily be a down-to-down running back, and a couple of freshmen that still have to prove themselves. So it would kind of suggest that you need a 1,000-yard rusher this season. However, I'm not necessarily sure that the 1,000-yard rusher is what you need most. We all know the stats that Georgia got outrushed by themselves on defense this year. I think you can be fine doing what you do on offense without having a 1,000-yard rusher. I think you need to run for 1,500 yards. I think that can be split up between a multitude of guys. Like example, last year, Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier had about 500, 600 yards apiece. I don't think Nate Frazier has to be a 1,000-yard guy for you to have a successful season this year, but you have to have 1,500 yards total rushing, and you need to outrush opponents again. Your defense rushing game was not great compared to what it was.
1,900 yards or 1,800 yards this year and got outrushed by opponents.
Yeah. Not great.
Georgia's standard rusher is 2,700 yards. Mm-hmm. Not 1,500.
No.
2,700 yards is the average, normal, under Kirby Smart. First time ever they were outrushed by opponents this year under Kirby Smart. Now, it was close in 2019. Mm-hmm. It was close. But it was close in the other way this year. I think it's a concern. I think the answer is yes. I think this run game will have to next year. If it's going to look like Georgia football in terms of running the ball, I think Nate Frazier is going to have to be a stat line of 18 for 110 and not 18 for 72. I think there's no doubt next year we know Nate Frazier's workload is drastically increased because Trevor Etienne is not returning. Okay? He's going to get 18 to 20 totes. If those 18 to 20 totes don't have at least one explosive, I think you're back into the same boat that you were in this year where Georgia's 4 yards in a cloud of dust the last 2 years in the run game. Yes. It can't be that this year. If it's that this year, they don't have a guy that I feel comfortable about dropping 35 times a game. Like they did the last 2 years. If you told me going into a football game the last 2 years, Carson's going to have to drop back 35 times, I'm like, okay, they played a standard operations football game for them under this circumstance. If you told me that under Stetson Bennett, though, I'd have been like, 28's the magic number for him.
Yes.
Not 35. 26, 27's the magic number for Gunnar Stockton, not 35.
And I think that's why this season is different than the others, is because specifically like the last year of Stetson and in the 2 years with Carson, of those 3 years, it felt like this guy might throw for 4,000 yards. Like that feels like it's a possibility here. Whereas no one's really putting that expectation on Gunnar of Gunnar might be a 4,000-yard guy. I think Gunnar's sweet spot is probably going to be around the 3,000-yard range, somewhere in that realm.
Even in 2023, I felt like it was guaranteed every third or fourth quarter Kendall Milton was going to rip off a 50-yard run. Mm-hmm. I felt like it was guaranteed.
I do think we need to take into consideration, though, you're going to have a quarterback this year that I would say has probably 300 to 400 rushing yards.
Correct.
So that's going to take away from it as well. And you want that. You want that guy to be able to open up the run game, because now when you're running zone option and things like that, you have more of a threat that opens it up for Nate Frazier and guys like that. So I don't know if Nate Frazier needs to hit 1,000 yards this year. I think if we all could predict the future right now and see if he did, and we'd all be very, very happy about that. But it's not necessarily a necessity in my mind.
I think the total yardage and the yards per play have got to increase in 2025. I don't think you're going to be as good defensively as you were in 2024. I think you have to move the ball more effectively and more explosively in 2025 to be a national championship winning caliber football team. I feel like I would have said that about last year's team too.
You also just need to be a more consistent team on offense.
Yes.
There were way too many times, and we know the story of the drops last year, but it's not even that. It's missed execution on the offensive line. It's bust all over. Like, things like that cannot happen this year. Even if you aren't as explosive of a football team this year, if you are a more organized and a cleaner football team, I think this offense will benefit a lot.
I would benefit a lot from hearing you guys give me some player comps
Ooh, let's do it. So we picked 5 players this time around. I think
Normally I'm the player comp guy watching film, and I don't necessarily love player comps unless it's just like, all right, Caleb Downs, he's Ed Reed.
Yeah.
Unless it just like sticks out like a sore thumb to me, then I'll do it. But normally I avoid it.
So
Well, let's hear it.
So we did ours a little interestingly. We picked 5 players and had them do comps for previous UGA players. Kind of what Georgia player does this remind you of? So the 5 players we picked were KJ Bolden, Nate Frazier, Oscar Delp, Raylan Wilson, and Dalen Everett. So I said KJ Bolden reminds me a little bit of Richard LeCounte. Kind of undersized, has an attitude that does not play like he's undersized.
He's underweight.
Yeah, underweight at least.
Yeah.
Instinctual player, has an absolutely no care attitude, is the alpha of that defense, will be at least this season, a just natural born leader. That's kind of who I got from that.
Here's where I went. I went with, what if you took Richard LeCounte's attitude,
Yep.
put it in J.R. Reed's body, and then gave him Malachi Starks' athleticism?
That's like the dream safety scenario.
Kinda, but he's 185 pounds.
Uh-huh.
That's the only like negative I have about KJ Bolden.
And that's
He's
why I think
185 pounds,
it
but
is.
he's 18, 19 years old.
That's why I think this was my preferred comp for him. Brandon Boykin.
Ooh.
Brandon Boykin was
Boykin was like 5'9".
No, that's what I was gonna say. Not as tall as KJ, but again, like KJ is taller, but he's not like some massive safety sitting back there. But I think that the attitude of Brandon Boykin, how he played football, is very similar to how KJ plays. Like just an all around playmaker, and kind of has that dog in him, man.
I think he's got like 90% of Richie's attitude. He's like 90% as big as JR. JR is 6'1", 206 at the combine. Looked it up today. Well, much bigger than you think he would be. KJ's about 6'1", 185 pounds. He's about 90% as big as J.R. Reed. And I think he's about 90% as athletic as Malachi. You know, Malachi's going to be a 4'1" guy at 6'2", 205. I think KJ's like a 4'9" guy. I like it.
All right, next one we have Nate Frazier. And me and Jay will talked about this before the show. It's one, very hard to do, and two, it feels very weird comparing running backs to running backs of old, because this is one of the positions more ever than it's like each Georgia running back that's notorious, or not notorious, but famous, has a very interesting and unique style. And Nate Frazier's, in my opinion, he's not the flashiest, but he has plenty of flash. He's not the most physical, but he's like the perfect mix of both. And I think the running back that kind of really portrayed that during his time at Georgia was Isaiah Crowell. Isaiah Crowell also had some turnover issues in the games, and there were moments, especially during that 2011 season, when you're like, that's a pretty young running back, but you saw the talent, you saw all the flash there. I feel like that's kind of what Nate Frazier is right now.
So this is supposed to be former Georgia players?
Yes.
Has there ever been a Looney Tune play in Athens?
I don't believe so.
Don't think
I think
so.
Those are strictly TV guys.
Well, imagine if you were to just strap a helmet and shoulder pads on the Tasmanian Devil and just had him run around all over the place. That's what Nate Frazier reminds me of. Even on film, he's a blur. Now, it's not because he's like 9'8", 100-meter speed blur, but it's like the whole time.
Change of direction's very
Crazy, but it looks like he's working really, really hard to do so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tasmanian Devil. What do you got for me?
Like that.
I went with Sony because I may not be remembering this correctly, so if I am, then someone I'm sure will call me out on it. But I kind of remember Sony dealing with a ball security issue early on in his career, and I think we're going to kind of see a similar thing with Nate in the sense of what we got with Sony Michel when Nick Chubb gets injured, and it's 2015. It's give Sony Michel the freaking football because that's all we got right now, and it emerged Sony Michel's career. It's one of the biggest reasons why he is remembered as he was, because he was a tandem with Nick Chubb, but when he had to take over, he did. I mean, he won them a lot of football games by himself that season, and I think that you're going to see that with Nate this year because he is going to be your lead back, and you're going to truly get to see him evolve in this year two. Nate Frazier going to get better at some things and be an all-around playmaker for Georgia.
Next up is Oscar Delp, and I want to preface this by saying Oscar Delp's ceiling right now at this point is like an Arthur Lynch football player.
Oh,
like I could see him, I know this. I could see Oscar Delp going for like 600 yards in a season.
For sure.
I could see it. However, so far he's been Jed Blezevich.
Oh.
Blezevich, good blocking tight end, good for about 280 yards. Some would say his best and most promising season was his freshman year.
That's true.
Just something there.
I went kind of in a similar vein of you. I went with Isaac Nada. in that recruited extremely high, really, really talented recruit, came in, immediately was solid on day one. Clearly had some things to clean up. He's been effective in the passing game. He's been effective in the blocking game, but he hasn't excelled to an extremely high level at either. And I think that's kind of where Oscar Delp is right now. Now, there's still a lot of meat left on the bone for him. He's still got a senior season ahead. We haven't seen a senior tight end season of what a guy like Oscar Delp is in a long time at Georgia. So he could have an incredible 2025. But right now, I think he's kind of in that Oscar Delp.
Chat's saying Eli Wolf. Y'all forget Eli Wolf is like a 4.49 runner, 4.51 guy. Eli Wolf is a tremendous athlete and looks like Bob Ross.
Also not really a blocker for you.
Big into painting is Eli Wolf. I had an interview with Eli Wolf.
Oh.
Yeah, where he had a photo on social media of him drawing mountains and stuff, and I photoshopped his face onto Bob Ross's face, and boy, did he get a chuckle out of that.
Love a little homegrown meme.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't even give a comp for Oscar. Just because I think I think tight end is so hard to give comparisons, especially with how Georgia's lineage of them has been, because it's definitely not going to be Brock Bowers, definitely not a Darnell Washington. I feel like putting him in this realm of like an Eli Wolf or any of those guys during that time, I think Oscar's a better athlete than those guys. I really don't know that there is someone that fits the Oscar Delp mold. I like yours because you took a select
smorgasbord.
Yeah, you did that. So I think that's the best way to do it for Oscar. I don't think you can pinpoint just one player specifically. Isaac Nada isn't a bad one, but I personally just struggle to find one and just settle with not doing one.
Up next, I got Raylan Wilson, and I'm copping out too. I'm going to give you like a reason why. I don't think he actually plays like this guy, but he fits into the role that this guy was having. Raylan Wilson is Channing Tindall to Nakobe is CJ Allen to Quay Walker is Chris Cole.
I'm going to need an elaboration on that.
I need a family tree right
now. You ready?
Hard to follow.
All right, so guaranteed Mike, leader, caller of the defense, CJ Allen, Nakobe Dean.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Freak, 6'3 plus, 250 plus, can run like a deer, avatar, Quay Walker, Chris Cole.
Facts.
Goodwill, situational pass rusher, not as pinpointed into either role, Channing Tindall, Raylan Wilson.
I actually really like that comp.
Right?
Yeah, I had a...
Now, Channing, super twitchy football player, 4.52, I believe, at the NFL Combine. Very, very... And showed it on tape, could roll and was put on the field in third downs to rush. Raylan, more of a first down backer, more traditional as a Mike and a Will, but I think he is the Channing of the Nakobe and Quay trilogy.
I think that's probably the best comp. I had a really hard time doing running because it's the style that he plays with isn't necessarily something that you could say, oh, that kind of reminds me of that. Like CJ Allen obviously has the Roquan comparisons and things like that. I went with Smile simply because it felt, and I don't think that's a great comp for him, but it felt to me like the best version of Raylan Wilson is someone who can be an effective pass rusher, but while also can be a very strong and reliable Will in the running game, in the passing game, and things like that. And it isn't going to be like overall elite at anything.
I almost went Natrez Patrick, but Natrez is just so much bigger.
Yeah, Natrez was huge.
Like 250 pounds.
That was that was pre Kirby Smart recruiting days.
Yeah.
That was like when
Natrez got drafted as an outside linebacker.
That was when you were basically playing the 4-2 with
4-3, 3-4, really.
Yeah, it was. But still, not the same body type, but you're right.
No.
I went Monty Rice. I think just because when I think of Raylan Wilson and the same way I think of Monty Rice, of that guy just did his job every single time. Maybe isn't going to just pop out on tape immediately. He's not going to do anything too ridiculous, but he's going to make plays for you, and he's going to be consistent, and he's always going to be reliable at that linebacker spot, and he does all the right things. That's kind of how I remember Monty Rice, of maybe not one of these like superb athletes, but he's still a really, really good linebacker.
All right, the Senior Bowl. Oh, no, we have Dalen Everett. We have Dalen Everett. I struggled here. I went like a 6'2" Amir Speed.
Okay.
But Amir is so massive.
You should have said Jalen Kimber.
Yeah, as a joke. Slick, kind of. I mean,
don't hate it.
Long limmy, 6'1", 190 pounds, longer than thick. But Dalen's way faster.
Yeah.
I had a source text me last year during the Combine. We were up there in Indy. Actually, he didn't text me. We talked about it afterwards at a bar. said if Tyke Smith's out here running 4.42, Dalen Everett's going to run 4.18. So I hope he does run fast whenever he gets to the NFL Combine, or else I'm giving smoke to that source.
I went with Tyson Campbell.
Interesting.
Tyson Campbell's one of the best athletes to ever, smoothest athletes to ever play at Georgia.
But to me,
Dalen is stiff.
It's true. It's true. Just as much as you struggled, I kind of struggled with this one too. But as far as I think the frame is somewhat similar. They're not the biggest corner, but they got long limbs. I think also why it played into this is people gave Tyson Campbell a hard time while he was at Georgia, and I think he was better. Struggled to play the ball, and I think Dalen kind of is that. People gave him a hard time, but then he started making plays on the football, and everything's okay now. Everybody loves Dalen now. I just think that there's some similarities between the two. That's why I went with him. And Tyson, good runner.
So this one's going to be a deep cut for a lot of the older Georgia fans. Dalen Everett reminds me of Damian Swan. Damian Swan.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Not that Swan. Not that. Damian Swan was from 2012 to 2014. Was a bigger bodied corner. Kind of struggled in certain zone coverages, but it always happened a couple times a season where I was like, my God, we needed that play. Happened in 2014 against Georgia Tech. He has the strip fumble, runs at 99 yards, had a really big interception in 2012. Dalen Everett has these type of plays where it's like there's certain moments of a game where it's like, he's getting kind of picked on here, but then it's a 2-interception game against Texas, or he's making huge plays. Like that to me is kind of what Dalen Everett is for Georgia right now. The Damian Swan arc. He's just been thinking of Happy Gilmore.
Conditioner makes the hair silky smooth. Shampoo is better. It makes the hair smell good.
That's what's been happening in the last 30 seconds in his brain.
Yeah.
Damian Swan was that young man's name?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Number 5.
Hell yeah. Dogs just balling at the Senior Bowl, Kirby.
You surprised?
Nah, couldn't be me. Not shocked at all.
Arian Smith had a couple of really nice catches.
Yeah, nabbing. That did kind of away from body, pulling off top DB head while getting ran down. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, it was underthrow.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, a nab from Arian Smith.
Arian Smith has looked good. Smile Munnon has excelled reportedly. Guys like Trevor Etienne,
Trevor Etienne opted out.
Matt Miller was spreading false news.
Cap Miller?
He had to redact, so I had to redact my article. I was just a good journalist and swung it into a different direction.
Hey, that's my boy. Well trained. Who taught you that?
But no,
we'll let out the secrets.
The guys, the Georgia Bulldogs who are playing in the Senior Bowl right now have been excelling, and we feel like this has happened a good amount of times for you. There have been some moments on social media, though, that have led to some frustration from fans. I don't know if you saw it. There's a couple of videos of Trevor Etienne looking really good in one-on-one passing.
It's on the notes. Wingspan, 69 inches. Nice. 69 inches on a 5'8" and a quarter-inch individual. That is Trevor Etienne's physical measurements, right? And we get out here in these one-on-ones, running backs on linebackers, and they got 53.5 yards to get loose, and we got 9 yards of space to run up there and step on their toes with a two-way go and make a linebacker look stupid out here on air. And social media fans want to go to social media and say, we should fire Mike Bobo because we didn't do any of this fun stuff with our running back. Guys, I vividly remember them running stop screens to Trevor Etienne this year. Mm-hmm. I vividly remember them trying to get him loose in the passing game to a far more extent than anybody else in that backfield this year. I also can tell you right now that 5'8", 202 pounds with a 69-inch wingspan, I don't know if they're ISOing that guy outside the numbers to run a go ball anyways. Okay, I wouldn't. Not based off the physical. The length is going to make windows a lot tighter.
Plus,
the catch radius isn't huge.
You had a great receiving back on the roster already, so you didn't really need to ask Trevor Etienne to do those things anyways. I mean, Cass Jones made several plays this year, impressive plays in the receiving game, so you had options there to do that anyways.
And this is the beauty of the curse of these one-on-one moments, because you get to watch these players and be like, man, they really were these great athletes, and you get to see them. Oh, this is you feel a sense of pride because my players on my team are doing well, and then you kind of get like, wait a minute, why did we never do any of this stuff? Those routes and those combinations, one, take a lot longer to develop. It's basically a metric of how your footwork is on the offensive and defensive side. They don't really care who wins unless someone just gets absolutely planted, which will happen every now and then. But the reality of it is that that's never going to be Trevor Etienne's bag in the NFL. And yeah, it looked really good on one-on-ones, but I don't think that he's ever going to be like a big contested catch guy in the NFL. And that was one of the main issues early on in the season. Was kind of like, does he have hands? Does he have the ability to catch?
I vividly remember a couple of drops from Trevor early on in the season.
You had drops from Trevor and Nate early in the season. It was like, who's going to be your passing game running back, which led to Cash Jones being your third down guy, which I think led to a couple tendencies that you had.
Did you see the Dan Jackson play from today?
Oh, yeah.
The quintessential Dan Jackson play.
You thought this was practice type of play.
Oh, you think you're just walking.
Oh, you could give a touchdown.
You think that shit's sweet. Hi, I'm Dan Jackson. It was a quintessential Dan Jackson play. Be quick here. Colby Young reached a plea deal today, pled no contest to child endangerment, family endangerment, and any other of those deals, or rather charges that he was related to. I guess per reports, this opens him up to returning to action at the University of Georgia. There is some probation or some class that he's got to go to.
Correct.
For 24 weeks or something.
I'll say this ain't the show to come to for court cases. All right, so we're here to talk ball, which is what we're about to do.
We do not have law degrees
right now. No, we got ball degrees, not law degrees. Let's talk ball.
I don't want the title either.
Let's talk some football. We have a email account set up, footballq4ba. Again, that's footballq4ba@gmail.com. Send in all of your football questions, and I want to start with this one right here. Guys, I had to redact some information. This comes, and it says, Brooks, what's up, man? If by any chance you see this, I do read these, I would love some recommendation for how to take my knowledge of the game to the next level, but I don't know where to start. I'm a recruiting and personnel assistant at Redacted University, but my goal is to make the shift to the coaching side by the time I complete my undergrad. If there's any help that you are able to provide, I really do appreciate it. Respects, Redacted. P.S. I love the channel. Keep up the good work. All right, Coach Redacted. I'm going to call you Coach Redacted, all right, because you're going where you want to go. I'm going to tell you this right now, and here's how you're going to do it. Okay, you are in a very, very pristine football university. I'm looking at this right here. You have access to really, really smart football people, but they're very, very time stricken. All right. So you're not going to be able to walk into a coach's office and say, hey, coach, can you teach me about how we go about coaching inside zone or how we go about install? No. But what I guarantee you all of them will allow you to do is something like this. They all want their workload diminished. Okay. But somehow, some way, which means for you, an opportunity seeker, you're going to have to increase your workload by doing something like this. Walk in, say you want to learn about running backs today. I would probably, if I were in your position, go to a running backs coach or some coach that you are really, really tight with on the staff. Maybe you've helped them out in prior engagements and say, Coach, I want to learn more about football. I'm on this side of things. Tell them your story. Say, hey, maybe one day I might see myself getting onto the other side of this and being a coach with a whistle in my hand, but I don't know a ton about football. Here's what I'm asking of you. Can I sit in on your meetings this week? And I will be a note taker. I will be in the back. You won't even know that I'm there. I will be basically a minutes keeper, a minute, what do you call those? Meeting minutes. I will be a meeting minutes keeper for your meeting. I will let everybody know. And you know what? If you want the details, summaries at the end, I'll send them to all your players. But I just want to learn, Coach. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm not going to bother. I guarantee you most football coaches will open their doors and say, yeah, come on in, son. As long as it fits within your schedule. And I think the best piece of advice I've ever gotten, and I know it's a different industry, but in this media industry, is to never say no. And I would apply that in any industry I would ever be in. If I were to leave this tomorrow and go get back into construction, if I were trying to climb to the top of that, I would always seek opportunities to learn, and I would never say no to any opportunity. Sometimes I would even force them, like I'm telling you to do. Go find a coach that you like, that you respect, that respects you, all right, and offer him something before you ask for something for him in return.
It's a good never one. Say no is always a pretty good advice, for sure.
Until you get to the point where you have to start saying no, and then be selective about your no's. You know, always
got to be within reason, for sure.
So Redacted, I hope you have a good time out there this season and you'll learn some more about ball. I also watch more of it. People don't watch enough football nowadays. I know that sounds crazy, but especially young kids, young football players are not watching ball. They're playing ball and they're going home and getting on TikTok and COD and dumb shit. They're not watching ball. that's all I did. When I got done playing, I just watched. When I was at home, I watched film. I watched TV copies. I watched as much football as I can. Eventually, the knowledge will come to you through osmosis. So appreciate that. All right, let's go to the board and talk some actual football concepts that have been submitted to, again, the email at footballq4ba. All right, this one comes from Wesley Parker. He wants to know about digs and sails. Okay, what is the difference between a dig route and a sail route? Okay, a dig route here, ladies and gentlemen, is this concept right here. All right, I want to kill Epic Pen, but we're already tied into it. It's all good. We're going to use blue today. Sorry, guys. A dig concept is this right here. We're going to run up, step on their toes, and we're going to bend in. Now, we can run digs a multitude of ways. Some people run up, they stick it hard, and they bend in there. Some people run up and they round out that dig. All right, we want to run that faster. A lot of times these benders right here are run on the backside of concepts. We're trying to run into the zone that we're trying to get into. These are normally your zone beaters. Now, a sail route is when we're probably a number 2 wide receiver, meaning we're in here in the slot. Okay, we're going to run up, step on the nickel's toes, bend him in, and then sail back out to the sideline. Both of these routes normally broke off at 12, rounded to 15 in most systems. Some systems run what we call big boy digs. They're going to run them all the way to 20. All right, not a ton of systems doing that in college football nowadays because of lack of protection. All right, that one comes from Wesley Parker. The difference between a dig and a sail route. All right, up next is my man Michael Edwards, who has another question about passing concepts. Okay, I've referenced in certain film studies smash concepts. Right, what are a smash concept? Sometimes in football we have one word that means 2 things. Okay, in a smash concept we have the number 2 wide receiver running a corner route. Okay, we have the number 1 wide receiver, usually an X or a Z out here, running some type of hitch right here. We're running this against cover 2. So if you're playing college football 25, you got a team that's playing a bunch of zone coverage, this is a good way to beat it. All we're trying to do is get that corner to force declare. Are we going to step down on this hitch? Are we going to play up underneath this corner route coming from the number 2 wide receiver? This is a smash concept. Another concept that's a one-word term in football is a dagger concept. Okay, a dagger concept is the number 1 wide receiver running a go or a vertical seam. This is a clear out route. All right, he is running this because he loves football. Your offensive coordinator say, I need you to run that like you love football, meaning you're not ever going to get the football unless for some reason we call dagger against a cover 3, which we wouldn't. We're calling dagger against cover 4 or cover 2. All we're trying to do is take that safety, move him off of that hash, run that dig right back in behind that. Okay, that is a smash concept. Also, dragon is another one-word concept that means 2 things for 2 different receivers in most offenses. Dragon is our post Dover concept in most offenses. We're going to run the post on the front side with the drag on the back side. Dragon. Okay, that's dragon concept. All right, those are all our one-word concepts in the sport of football. All right, this one comes from Don Garrett. In the next Q&A, can you please explain what an over and under defense means? Now, this is regards to defensive alignment, particularly in even front football teams. Okay, even fronts, 4 downs. Okay, odd fronts. How many guys down in an odd front, gentlemen?
3 or 5.
Attaboy, I was holding the numbers up for you. 3 or 5, you're right, in a bear front. Good job. All right, so an under front is based on the strengths of the defense. So if I have the back on the right, an under front would be the nose tackle crossed faced in a shade technique or less than a 3 technique, meaning less than the outside shade of the guard. All right, under from the running back. If we call an over front, all right, I'm going to take that front side defender and I'm going to put him in a 3 technique and I'm going to bump that nose tackle on the backside. So that's under and over fronts.
You might as well go over mint front while you're at it.
Mint front. All right, mint front is what Georgia and a lot of defenses did to take away a lot of this combination determination from these offenses, okay? When I give them a nice, easy 4-down front and they want to run inside zone into my over front right here, their combinations are easy. They're nice and clean, right? These guys are going to go to the backside or the front side inside linebacker, okay? We're either going to read option this backside guy and run that tackle up to the backside inside linebacker or the will in this occasion, all right? Or we're going to lock this guy and outrun the will. All right, so the reason teams started hopping into mint fronts is to cause problems for a lot of these combination blocks, right? If I take a zero technique and I put them right here directly over the center, and then I take a 4-eye over here and walk the jack down and then take a defensive end and put them on the backside, now I'm still playing technically a 4 down front out of odd alignment. Okay, so now I'm causing more and more problems for these combinations. Now y'all are going to have to go all the way out. Y'all are going to have to call what we call a full scoop on this nose, all right, and you're going to have to decide still what you're going to do with that backside end. Okay, so our team started hopping in mint front, give a little bit more problems with the combinations of those down linemen. Tremendous addition to the conversation there, Christian Kirby. So that's footballq4ba@gmail.com. I love the opportunity to get up on those boards and talk a little bit about football with you guys right there. So there you go.
Fun stuff, man. I always like talking the X's and O's of the game.
Yeah, man. I think it makes this channel very, very unique. Now, I always should have put a forewarning on the front end of that. Everything I get up on that board and talk about it's the channel's terminology. It's how we would teach and educate things. Joe Schmo, the coach, I shouldn't say Joe Schmo, legendary high school football coach at some school might teach it and use a totally different terminology than the way I do it. It's very similar to like how or even like the English dialect, right? Mm-hmm. How you go to one area of the country and English is spoken completely different than you go to the Northwest area of the country. Same thing in football. All right. We call certain things in certain offenses different than we do in other offenses. Same thing for the defensive side of the ball.
Soda is pop. Soda is pop.
Soda is pop. Tomato. One of them things.
Worsh.
Who's out here worshing?
Oh, people in Pittsburgh.
You don't know a worsher?
I don't know a worsher.
Oh,
wow.
You got to travel the country, man. See the world.
We have any nostalgic tape tonight?
We have nostalgic tape. We can go to nostalgic tape. We can talk about what it would take for Gunnar or Nate to win the Heisman this year.
You got to take on this. And I'm interested to see, chat, how Kirby is about to take this segment into something other than got to put up some good stats.
Yeah, so obviously good stats is the catalyst for being any other Heisman, but there's more that goes into winning the Heisman Trophy. One, we've all established at this point it's a popularity contest, and you have to kind of have some quote-unquote aura around you. So I listed out a couple of requirements that I think Gunnar Stockton would have to have, and Nate Frazier, in order to win the Heisman this year. Number one, and this goes for both of them, Georgia has to be either undefeated or in heavy national title contention. You can't really have one without the other, but you're not going to be able to Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson your way to a national, or even Travis Hunter your way. You have to be in the national title discussion if you want to win the Heisman as Gunnar Stockton. Number two, he has to have a Tim Tebow like moment or two. We talk about Tim Tebow. There's always the legendary moments. The big Florida State game where he runs over a safety and he gets up and it looks like he's all red. Like it's over there actually. What put to it on screen? Stuff like that is what Gunnar Stockton is going to have to do. He needs to have these type of moments where it's the iconic things.
Look at this guy.
Statistically, I said he needs to have about 3,000 passing yards and 500 rushing yards by the end of the regular season.
Is that camera one?
Yeah. Zooms in a lot.
And you did that before, so we had to hit this segment.
Well, I mean, if not, I could just go back to camera one like that.
Whoa, this guy's a magician.
So statistically, wow. I said that he needs about 3,000 passing yards or 500 rushing yards by the end of the regular season. You don't have to win your conference championship. Jaden Daniels didn't win his conference championship. Travis Hunter didn't even go to the conference championship. Neither Jaden.
Boom.
So you don't need to be in the SEC championship this year. Another thing is you have to go viral off the field, kind of Diego Pavia style. Do you remember the Alabama quote afterwards?
Did we blow our wad with the F-150 trick then? The photo?
Maybe not. He can have some more. I mean, like Gunnar Stockton himself is an interesting guy, so you can have more moments around this. Like the moment I think about this is remember when Diego Pavia beat Bama last year and he had the
Vandy we lit.
Exactly. And then for like the next 2 weeks, people were like,
Vandy national title winner?
Is he a Heisman contender? He was listed on the potential finalists, the watch list, things like that. That's got to be something Gunnar Stockton has to do. He's not going to be that outdate or outlandish, but something like that goes viral. Did you see what Gunnar Stockton said? Did you see what he did? Next one, I think you have to have a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You don't have to light the world on fire with touchdowns here. I think we know he's not going to do that necessarily, but if you have 25 touchdowns this year, you can only have like 6 or 7 interceptions, and it goes on like that. You need also 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns, and these are probably going to come in the red zone for you. You're going to have these, oh my gosh, Gunnar Stockton is just a wrecking ball. Again, a Tim Tebow-esque guy. I think the Heisman comp for Gunnar Stockton is Tim Tebow. Not necessarily the player comp, but the season that you would have to win the Heisman is a Tim Tebow. And then the most important requirement is you can't have someone else go nuclear this year. You can't have the Joe Burrow or the Lamar Jackson or the Cam Newton type season. Like, you have to be basically the guy, and it's got to be like, well, there really wasn't a clear cut, oh my God, this is the best player in college football, so we're going to give it to Gunnar Stockton. That's kind of my...
I'll tell you one thing is, if he does have one of these moments where, and what I mean by moments is, you have a football game and then college game day is rolling into town and they want to do a sit down with you and do this whole meaningful story about Gunnar Stockton, it'll play in perfectly because they're going to go, oh, he's dating the daughter that's related to Georgia legend Vince Dooley. His sister's name is Georgia. He grew up in Rabun County. He already has previous relationships with Mike Bobo. This guy was bred to be a Bulldog, and he loves the G. Like, it'll play in perfectly if it all aligns in that way. To where
I did cattle research today, boys.
Did you? Cattle research? Yep. Oh, yeah.
Because I'm sitting there at the Sugar Bowl media availability, and God bless their soul, news anchor comes up and he's, he or she's like, you come from such a small town and such grassroots and you drive an old truck F-150 and your parents bought you 15 cows for Christmas. And I snapped my head around because clearly the person does not know how much a cow costs. Do you know how much a cow costs?
Oh, cow's a couple grand for
yeah, average about $2,500 per head of cattle. Mm-hmm. Man's got like a $30,000 Christmas gift, and ladies out here talk about, ooh, such small town grassroots. I'm like, ma'am, cows are expensive.
All right. So, yeah. On to Nate Frazier. Again, Georgia has to be a heavy national title favorite or undefeated at the very least. Obviously, you can't have one without the other. Nate Frazier needs to have a touchdown at least once a game. Can be rushing, it can be receiving, but you can't have these, didn't have any touchdowns today. You got to get to the end of the regular season with about 20 total touchdowns, I think, if you want to be in the Heisman discussion. We know how hard it is to be a Heisman winning running back, so going to need to have about 15 regular season ones before it gets there. Next up, you have to have 1,000 rushing yards or 400 receiving yards by the end of the year, or just 1,500 total yards. If you want to rush for 1,500 yards in 12 games, be my guest. I think that you have to do it through the receiving game too. We saw him get more involved towards the back end of the year. He could absolutely get 500, 600 receiving yards, I think. Next is you're going to have 4 to 5 highlight reel plays. Mm-hmm. These are the most important things for running backs. The Derrick Henry stiff arming in the Michigan State game. I know that was after he won the Heisman. Things like that. The Reggie Bush major plays, like the human highlight reel. You have to have 4 or 5 of those. He's completely capable of that. So I think that that's also in the realm. One, Derrick Henry had 4. Now, granted, they were giving him the ball 45 times a game on average, pretty much. But there's got to be one of these games where it's like, my God, Nate Frazier went off in this game. So I think that's how you win the Heisman if you're Nate Frazier.
All right, let's have a little fun. I'm going to call a play. We're going to see if the chat and the team here can guess what the actual play is, and then we'll go draw it up, all right? So here's how this is going to be called in my offense. We'll go personnel first, okay? Then we will go formation. Then we will go concept. On 11. All right, here we go.
Trips right.
There you go.
Some form of snap.
What snaps? What breaks?
Sticks.
There we go. Here we go. We got 11 trips right, stick. All right, here we go. Let's talk about it. 11 trips right, stick. So we are in 11 personnel. We have a tight end. We're going to line him up over here in the slot with a attached slot receiver right next to him with the Z over here. We're in trips right. X always goes away from the call. All right, so if we're in trips left, where does the X go, chat?
If we're in trips left, the X goes to the right.
There you go. Always goes opposite of the call. If we're in duo right, where does the X go?
To the right.
He goes to the left. He always goes opposite of the call. If we go duo right, where does the X go?
Left.
There you go. Here we go. Just trying to make sure we're retaining what we're putting down here. We got trips right. All right. Stick. All right. Let's talk about it. Actually, we got to flip-flop this X or this slot receiver and the Y. We're trying to give the option route to our number 3 wide receiver. So I guess you could run it this way if you like your slot receiver as a whip guy or a space creator a little bit more than the big body target at the Y. But normally we're running this stick route, okay, this option route where either you're going to sit in this zone or work out for the Y Y. We're going to run an arrow with number 2. We're going to clear out with number 1 on the backside. We're running a slant. We're going to put the running back opposite of the call. We're going to run an arrow for him. All right, we're working this side over here against zone coverage. We're working this side over here against man coverage. All right, so if you're a video game player and you can see stick called constantly, just know if you come out to the line of scrimmage, you see man indicators, work the left side. If you see zone indicators, work the right side. That is trips right stick out of 11.
Here's a personnel question.
Yes, sir.
How do you decide and differentiate who's the top of the trips, where the Y is going, where the Z, where the slot go in this? Is that just understood that you're going to do trips like that? Is that predetermined?
Yeah, so normally we have actual rules here. Like normally the Y is closest to the ball. Mm-hmm. So I drew this incorrectly. That's why I said sometimes I made myself correct, saying sometimes we like the guy here. Normally there are set rules. All right, there are also, I heard this term the other day, having split logic. All right, meaning if we call a mesh route out of trips, we want that bunched, right?
Yes.
So I want to be able to shorten my terminology. If I call, trips right, if I call mesh or anything like that, I want you to have split logic. No, okay, he didn't have to tell me trips right bunch. He just said trips right mesh. And I know on mesh, we've got to condense our split. We got to have split logic. Same thing with offensive linemen, right? If I know I'm on the front side of counter, all right, if we're running downs right here and pulling these guys, all right, I might want to widen my split a little bit out here at tackle to stretch that end out just a little bit so he's not, running the edge as tight as he can. These are the little trips right stick on the show for you guys today. I think I'm good. Are you boys good?
I believe so.
Hey, man, this is the week we're going to find out who was seeking ball knowledge. You know what I mean? Who's going to be down here watching tape with us in Mom's basement when football season's over? Football season ain't never over, right?
Never.
I ain't going to stop working. You going to stop working?
No.
You going to stop working?
No.
All right. Y'all